Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to share with you the City of Moscow Police Department, Idaho cops, they are being offered counseling as the public pressure intensifies to find the person who is responsible for killing these four students. You see, as we get close to 7 weeks, there are no leads, there are no motives, they haven't named a person of interest. So any cops who are investigating this quadruple student murders in Moscow, Idaho, they have been offered counseling as the investigation moves into its 7th week, with police yet to name a suspect or motive, and they are under intense pressure to resolve this case. And because just like me, just like you, just like the family, we want to see justice for these four students who were brutally taken from this world way too soon. The two girls that were on the first floor, they were said to have been locked in their rooms on the first floor. And it is also said that one of these two surviving victims who placed the 911 call at 11:58 November 13th because they were unable to wake one of the victims and feared she may have passed out. We don't know all the logistics. We don't know which roommate made the phone call. We do know that a roommate's phone was used for the phone call. We don't know who made that call. It's key to know that part because we really don't know. Moscow Police Chief James Fry, he admitted that the brutality of the slaughter they discovered, the first homicides in this small Idaho University town in 7 years, has impacted deeply on all those who are investigating this crime. And so it's taken a toll on them. Chief Fry himself has even broke down in tears as he told Fox News, "I'm a dad with daughters. It's tough. We're human. We don't go to these and just turn it on. It affects us. But we have a job to do, and we're going to continue to do that job, continue to push forward." His visible emotion offered a glimpse into the toll of dealing with this gruesome crime and a scene unlike any his relatively inexperienced force has ever witnessed. Now, the lead investigator, Brett Payne, he's a 32-year-old Army veteran with just 2 years of policing under his belt. So he's still fresh at this. All of the weight of this case falls on Chief Fry. And now we find out that counseling services have been activated and offered to officers, all of whom are working throughout the holidays in a bid to solve the crime that has gripped the nation. And when I say nation, everyone. You got so many true crime creators like myself talking about this. You have so many people who don't even create content around true crime that are all over Twitter. You have all these internet sleuths playing detectives. Now, some of their theories are way out, and I get it. We want to play detective. I get that. We have to be careful who we're pointing fingers at. And so Moscow Police Department spokesman Captain Anthony Dollinger, he told DailyMail.com, "From the point of view of taking care of our officers, we have activated counseling resources for anyone who needs them, and our priority is to keep our force healthy as we work until we get this investigation to its conclusion." He even added, "Morale is high, and we're all committed to seeing this investigation through to the end. It's being the holidays is kind of moot. We're just focused on that goal." And so, as I mentioned, the private taxi driver who drove Gonzalez and Mogan home, his goal was to deliver them to safety, and he felt like he delivered them to their deaths. And that was his comment about that in this. So, speaking on condition of being anonymous, he expressed little faith in the police department's ability and said, "It's not lost on me that my job was to get them home safe, and this time it didn't really make a difference. Those kids deserve justice." And it feels to this community like the police aren't even trying. So the community even feels like the police are not even trying. And he says, which is 100% related to how they're communicating with the community, and people are scared. And the driver told how he had picked up the girls around 1:45 a.m. Now, I'll remind you, if they're at the bar at 1:32 a.m., were they leaving? Were they talking to the people as they left? Because if they're at the bar at 1:32 a.m., so that is what? 13 minutes later, the private taxi driver picks them up. Somewhere along the line, I feel like this timeline is a little bit off. Or the timestamp is off in that photo. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments what your thought is. Because the timestamp says on that night, 1:32 a.m. on November 13th. So if that's correct, and they're hitching a ride, they're picked up by the private taxi driver at 1:45 a.m. That's 13 minutes to walk to the food truck, order their food, talk to some friends, and then hop in the vehicle. To me, that timestamp's not adding up. That's just my thought on it. So my guess is that 1:32 a.m. is wrong. If the taxi driver, who should have a really good idea on what time he picked them up, was 1:45. I could be wrong. Because they got there, ordered their food, had to wait for their food, and then their driver gets there and they leave. So about 13 minutes since this timestamp of them being at the corner club to the point where they get to the grub truck's food stamp, get their food, and then get a ride. And the driver says that he picked up the girl. He recalled that they were super excited about the pasta dish that they had just picked up at the grub truck. Those were his words in this matter. Again, we really don't know all this information, right? This is still ongoing. What we do know is that now the police, they're offered counseling. And at first, when I first was seeing these stories, I actually thought that the counseling was for the community. I thought that they were offering counseling for the students, for people who lived in there, but it's actually counseling for the law enforcement who are dealing with this crime like no other, like something they've never, ever seen, right? So I don't know. As police officers, I don't expect that they come across this. They haven't had to deal with a murder in 7 years, right? So they're probably not equipped to handle this at all. And so the taxi driver, he said, most of us here have very little faith in Moscow Police Department. We can't tell if we are watching qualified investigators who have a handle on the situation or if they are completely at a loss and grasping for straws. Now, Moscow Police Department, they are being assisted by 62 FBI agents and 28 Idaho State police officers. And the FBI has brought in 2 criminal profilers in a bid to gain some understanding of who might have committed these brutal slayings. But police have yet to recover the murder weapon. Now, personally, I think this murder weapon will lead to something. I think that this murder weapon will have the answers for a lot of this. So one of the first things they're really aiming hard for is the weapon. And we're going to dive into why did this perp choose a knife to do this. We'll talk about that here in a second. But once they get this weapon, a lot will start falling into place, is my thought. And so the police, they've issued mixed messages regarding whether they believe the attacks were targeted or random. Chief Fry says that investigators are fact finders. That's what he is sharing. Mr. James Fry, the police chief of Moscow, he has continued to defend his department's handling of the investigation as he described their work as that of fact finder. Let me ask you, my friends, if this was in another city, would this have been solved? If this was in a city where crime happens a little more often than, say, every 7 years like this, would it already been solved? I would think with technology alone, FBI involved, 62 FBI agents, they gotta have some experience on staff here. Mr. James Fry, he says, we are fact finders. We're not just fishing for theories. And so the police chief, he told KREM2 that he understands the level of frustration around the case, as 6 weeks have now passed in this heinous crime. And we're going on the 7th week with the killer still at large, or killers. We believe it's one, but we really don't know. However, he said that investigators need all the facts in order to make an arrest. He says, we are fact finders. That's what an investigation does. Puts all the pieces together and paints a picture so when an arrest is made, goes to trial, we can lay that all out for a jury to be able to see the facts and see how we got from point A to point B, which is extremely critical that they are careful with what information they even release to us, the public, right? That's a no-brainer. Even though a lot of us, including myself, want to see justice for these 4 kids, they have to be careful how they put their case together. And so the police chief, he said that we just want to make sure that we have all the facts, because at trial, they're going to want to know how you got there. Goal is the prosecutors have to prove without a shadow of a doubt that they have their killer and the right killer, because if there is any shadow of a doubt, the perp can get off if it's the real person. The police chief, he has been forced to defend law enforcement on multiple occasions as the investigations rumbles on with no arrests, no suspect on their radar, allegedly according to them, and no murder weapon has been found. The cops, they truly believe that someone has information into this. Even though they're getting criticized for not finding a suspect or anyone who's behind this slaying of the 4 University of Idaho students. Now, as we go into the 7th week, the department said in an update that detectives believe that the person may have a crucial detail that adds context to what occurred on the night of the murders. Our focus remains on the investigation, not an individual's activities displayed in the tip. So they could be out there doing illegal activity. We want to know if, as long as they're not the killer, we don't care what they were doing, basically, right? They just want any tips that they can come up with. And he says, whether you believe it is significant or not, your information might be one of the puzzle pieces that helps solve these murders. Now, cops, they added that digital submission of tips and leads will not be made public due to our ongoing commitment to keep information private, and details may be pertinent to the ongoing criminal investigation. Police also confirmed Tuesday that an associate history professor at the college who was mentioned in a viral video is not considered a suspect. You know, at the end of the day, I want justice, you want justice. And if you're a person of prayer, please pray that these 4 kids get the justice they deserve. Hashtag justice for Idaho 4. I'm Manny Rodriguez, and my whole purpose of this channel is to keep you updated on what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. Because at the end of the day, these victims deserve justice. They deserve more voices for them. They can't speak for themselves. They can't ask for justice themselves anymore. We have to have it on our conscience and our hearts and our minds to be proactive for these victims, my friends. And that's the whole purpose of this channel. If this is the type of content you like to follow, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way, whenever I go live or I upload content, you will get notified. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez. This has been another episode of Deep True Crime. My friends, be safe out there. Until next time, peace.